I'm Mark Crumpton. You're watching Bloomberg Technology. Let's begin with a check of first word news. President-elect Donald Trump has reversed his campaign promise to investigate or prosecute Hillary Clinton. In an interview at the offices of the New York Times, Mr. Trump said, quote, "I don't want to hurt the Clintons. I really don't. She went through a lot and suffered greatly in many ways. Going after her, in his words, is just not something that I feel very strongly about." House Democratic leader Nancy Pelosi appears to be responding to a challenge by her leadership by becoming more inclusive. She's promising to give more influence to junior lawmakers on congressional committees and within her leadership team. Pelosi is being challenged for minority leader by Ohio Congressman Tim Ryan. A new report says that since 2014, Islamic State has used chemical weapons in Iraq and Syria at least 52 times and targeted Mosul, Iraq's second largest city, 19 times. The report from IHS Markit says chlorine and mustard agents are the most likely chemicals to be used against civilians or military forces in Mosul. A new report warns Britain's National Health Service is facing potentially crippling problems because of a $2.3 billion deficit, its biggest ever. The British government spending watchdog warns that care may be impacted because money needed to improve buildings and software will have to be reallocated. I'm Mark Crumpton. Bloomberg Technology is next.
I'm Emily Chang, and this is Bloomberg Technology. Coming up, a shipping disaster for Amazon. A pilot strike threatens delivery during the e-commerce giant's busiest weekend of the year. We'll have the latest. Plus, Hewlett-Packard Enterprise says its first quarter will disappoint. The reason, slumping demand for its servers and storage gear. We'll hear from CEO Meg Whitman. And coming up, President-elect Donald Trump makes peace with the New York Times, a target of his frequent tweet storms. For those looking for a respite from divisive social media surrounding the election, we may have an online community just for you. But first, to our lead. A pilot strike could hit Amazon where it hurts and disrupt deliveries during its most important shopping weekend of the year. 250 pilots employed by ABX Air, which flies packages for Amazon and DHL, are protesting alleged staffing shortages. ABX is asking a judge to force its employees back to work. All of this as the retail industry gears up for an 11% increase in online spending over the next 2 months. From last year, Amazon will benefit from much of that. Joining us now to discuss the behind-the-scenes work this holiday shopping season is SJ Consulting Group President Satish Jindel, as well as Mike Osaso, our Bloomberg News reporter, who covers the airlines, and ABX pilot Ziebarth, Captain Rick Ziebarth, joining us now on the phone. But Michael, I want to start with you. First of all, give us the very latest, what we've heard from ABX, what we've heard from Amazon, and what we've heard from the pilots.
Yeah, well, glad to be here. The latest, we're told that these parties are actually in court as we speak. The ABX Air, the airline, is trying to get a restraining order to get the pilots back to work and get these shipments going. It's a little unclear about whether they're going to get this restraining order, although the conventional wisdom is they will get a restraining order and these pilots will go back to work. It's just not clear about the timing yet.
Now, Rick, pilot Captain Ziebarth, joining us now on the phone. Talk to us a little bit about how it got to this point from your end.
Yes, be happy to. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. We are negotiating a new collective bargaining agreement. We've been negotiating one for almost 2 years. But this strike, known as a status quo strike, is actually a strike over the existing collective bargaining agreement, which management, because of the staffing shortage, and believe me, it's not alleged, management will readily agree there's a staffing shortage, and so do we, because we've been talking about it for the past 2 years. But they unilaterally altered certain provisions of our contract because they are short of pilots, and that violation is putting an additional workload and strain on our crews. And through numerous meetings and negotiations to try to alleviate those issues and to rectify them, management ultimately refused to come to an agreement with us to maintain the status quo, and therefore we elected to strike, which took effect early this morning at 2:30 in the morning Eastern time.
So, Captain Ziebarth, do you see a protracted strike here or not?
The strike will take as long as it takes to resolve the issue, as the gentleman previously noted. I'm not really aware of where we are in the court proceeding, but I was advised that the company filed a complaint in federal court, and certainly a federal judge has that authority. But I can tell you that, in my opinion, the judge will not issue an order, certainly not tonight. So we'll be on strike for the rest of the day and through tomorrow, and we'll see how that court case progresses.
So, Satish, how much do you think this particular issue could impact Amazon, given that they do have other carriers here, but also volume is expected to go up, as online shipments go up, and Amazon gets, a lot of that new business?
You are absolutely right. The timing is probably the worst that the pilots could have chosen to hurt the public that is counting on its holiday season. And even though they do business with UPS, FedEx, who have the ability to help them with handling some of that volume, gearing up for that in this short time is going to be a challenge, and there would be some implications in terms of timing for delivery of those packages. They could get delayed by a day or 2 days. Now, it is not critical that those packages have to be there in 2 days, because a lot of those shipments are being bought for holiday season. However, it is my view that the courts are not going to let the strike prolong, because this has never happened before, where the courts have allowed the public to suffer as a result of it, and they'll send them back to the bargaining table while they keep operating in the interim.
Now, Michael, Amazon has been working on its own fleet of cargo jets to help carry the load. How much could that actually impact the growing Amazon business going forward?
Well, they've secured the use of about 40 jets and what they do is they fly their merchandise to these various distribution or quote fulfillment centers around the country. And the idea is to get the merchandise closer to people, to allow for these 2-day deliveries and even these same-day deliveries. So it's a big push for Amazon. I think one of the interesting things is, will this strike cause them to second guess anything? They really relied on UPS and FedEx previously to do a lot of this flying, and now that they're going to start doing it themselves, are they going to rethink that? Are these kind of possible strikes and shortages of pilots going to come back to bite them at all? I think that's an open question.
Now, Captain Ziebarth, we've heard that some airlines may actually honor the strike and pick up the slack. What can you actually tell us about that?
Within our system, we have a sister company known as ATI that has flown trips in the service of Amazon that I was made aware of today. Yes, that's true. Limited flights, they have, I believe, 8 airplanes in service.
Now, Satish, last year was, the busiest holiday shopping season Amazon had ever experienced. They did have one major snag where they didn't anticipate the amount of demand that would come from third-party resellers. Aside from this particular strike, what do you think the biggest challenges will be for Amazon to overcome this particular holiday season?
I think they have made several changes during this year to prepare themselves for handling the increase in volume. They have working with the big carriers that you know of, UPS, FedEx, the post office, and post office actually handles more volume from them than other two combined, and post office has a very large network. They can absorb it. They're delivering on Saturday and Sundays for Amazon, and then they've got their own independent contractors in various markets that they're going to be able to leverage, including some regional carriers are delivering for them, like On Track and LaserShip. Plus, I would disagree with what Michael said about, I don't think Amazon is going to retract from using a company like ATSG for their flying. All other airlines have union pilots, and they can experience the same thing. I think this is going to be a simple blip that is going to be forgotten within another day or two.
All right, Satish Jindel, president and owner of SJ Consulting Group. Thanks so much. Also, ABX Air Captain Rick Ziebarth will continue to follow what's going on with the strike. Thanks for joining us by phone, and our very own Michael Sasso of Bloomberg News. Thank you as well. Coming up, the debate over how to moderate online discussion is heating up since the U.S. presidential election results. We'll talk to the founder of Imzy, a startup trying to defeat the trolls. And a reminder, all episodes of Bloomberg Tech now live streaming on Twitter. Check us out at Bloomberg Tech TV weekdays, 6 p.m. in New York, 3 p.m. in San Francisco. This is Bloomberg. The election has divided the U.S. off and online, with simmering controversy over the spread of fake news on Facebook, plus the surge of harassment on Twitter. Meantime, President-elect Donald Trump himself is using Twitter to call out those he thinks are wrong, airing his grievances with everyone from the cast of the musical Hamilton to Saturday Night Live to the New York Times, before eventually meeting with the Times editorial board today. Joining me now, Dan McComas, co-founder and CEO of Imzy, a startup building out a community platform with the goal of defeating trolls and online abuse. Dan, you used to work at Reddit. So new voices with the election of Donald Trump have joined the online conversation. There's been a rise in racist and hateful language and accounts on Twitter. For example, we're now seeing folks identifying themselves as part of an alt-right movement, so-called, a controversial term. How do you plan to monitor, moderate, or even suppress this kind of discussion?
Well, we really think about it as a culture problem. Of course, there's technology that is involved in helping us detect and prevent these kind of things. But the biggest thing that we think that other companies have really forgotten is that what we're dealing with is a culture. So we raised enough money so that we could spend a long time in private beta so we could start communities to actually seed our culture. And I think what you'll see is that on Twitter, especially Reddit, Facebook, and these other places, what you really have is a culture of hate. You have a culture of harassment. And by having a culture of these things, they're really encouraged and they're really spread far and wide. So that's really what we're looking at.
How do you actually change that? I mean, I'm sure, Reddit didn't start out thinking they would be breeding a culture of hate, and neither did Facebook or
Sure.
Twitter. These networks sort of become what the users often want them to become.
Sure, but you have to focus on it from day one. And I think, and I know that personally, that these other platforms really didn't. What you focus on as a startup is growth at all costs. And especially when your business model is one of advertising, you're really forced to focus on growth. You focus on growth at all costs. And when you have something that is really proving to exponentially grow your platform overnight, you go with that. And if that happens to be harassment and hate, you're incentivized to go with that. What we're really trying to do is set up a different business model, one that is in line with the communities, one that is really in favor of the communities, so that we're forced to make decisions against these things. We know that we can't solve the problem that there are jerks online. It's not something that we can solve, but by merely trying and providing the tools from day one for community leaders and community members to help us help them, we're going to be in a better place. At least that's our belief.
So Friday night, for example, the cast of Hamilton delivered a much talked about message to Vice Presidential-elect Mike Pence, who was in the audience. The star of Hamilton saying, "We, sir, we are the diverse America who are alarmed and anxious that your new administration will not protect us, our planet, our children, our parents, or defend us and uphold our inalienable rights." President-elect Trump said that Vice President-elect Pence had been harassed. How do you define and, more importantly, monitor what may or may not be harassment? Some people felt that what the cast of Hamilton discussed wasn't harassment at all.
Well, I think that's a good question, and there's always a gray line that's hard to tread. We're lucky that in a community platform we have a hierarchy. So we have community leaders, we have community members, and we're able to surface problems like that in a more organic way. I think that you have real problems on Twitter that their rules aren't applied evenly. So I think a lot of the things that you see Donald Trump doing, you saw also Milo Yiannopoulos doing, and he was banned when Trump wasn't. So, we really intend to enforce our rules equally across all people, whether they're stars or not. Harassment is harassment, but we recognize that that is a hard gray line, so we're very focused on scaling our teams appropriately to our communities, which is something that you don't see these other companies really focusing on.
So if you were Twitter CEO Jack Dorsey right now, what would you be doing differently?
Oh man, that's a hard problem because you've got so many years of this pervasive problem. I think that he needs to lay down the law. I think that he needs to ban a lot of people. He needs to stop a lot of behavior. He needs to take a lot of actions like not allowing anybody to participate on Twitter without verifying their email address. There are simple actions that people aren't taking because they have to focus on growth at all costs. And these are some of them. I wrote a post recently about this, and there's just a lot of simple things, focusing on making sure that people have the right identities so that they can be authentic. There's just a lot of easy things that he could be doing that they're not.
And what about President-elect Trump himself, who, certainly he's not taken a break from Twitter at all, to the surprise of many. You've got a survey that came out today saying that most people would like him to shut down his personal Twitter account. How should Trump be behaving?
I think he should be banned from Twitter. I mean, if he were doing what he did on our platform, he would have been banned many years ago because he is in effect calling for harassment of different people. And it's not proper behavior. So you think Jack Dorsey should ban Donald Trump from Twitter? I think he should have a long time ago, yes.
All right. Strong statement. Dan McComas, co-founder and CEO of Imzy. We will keep our eye on you guys. Thank you so much for stopping by. Coming up, HP Enterprise and the spun-off HP Inc. both reported earnings after the close today. We will wrap up the results. This is Bloomberg. You know about Black Friday and Cyber Monday, but now eBay is hoping the idea of Mobile Wednesday also catches on. The idea is to persuade Americans en route to Thanksgiving dinner to buy goods while on the road. eBay, along with all other e-retailers, need to jolt sales. So far, this is the slowest November for online sales since Adobe began collecting data in 2012. Well, after the close, HP Enterprise and its spun-off printer business, HP Inc. reported results. HP's earnings matched estimates, but the CEO warned of slowing sales in the current quarter. And HP Enterprise topped forecast, but also gave a disappointing forecast. CEO Meg Whitman outlined where she sees growth for the company. Take a listen.
With this portfolio, we estimate we have a total addressable market of over $250 billion. And within that, there are areas of very high growth, like high-performance compute, private cloud, software-defined networking, and industrial IoT. We are already well-positioned to lead in these areas, and you will see us continue to invest in a targeted way.
Crawford Del Prete, Chief Research Officer at IDC, joins me now via Skype. So, Crawford, first of all, you just got off the phone speaking with Meg Whitman herself. What did she have to say?
Well, basically, similar to what you saw on the call. I mean, what's interesting is Meg talks a lot about remaking Hewlett-Packard Enterprise. They're really a company that's focused on the enterprise infrastructure space. And I think what people need to get their heads around is that the enterprise infrastructure is changing. It's not going away. You have to, build out the cloud. You have to build out what's in private data centers. And as you just, talked about on that clip, this kind of industrial Internet of Things. There's so much data that's at the edge that Hewlett-Packard wants to capitalize on. But what's different is, and what Meg talks a lot about, is building a different size overhead structure, building a different infrastructure to support, a company that's just not as big. And you're seeing that as the company hits its one-year anniversary of Hewlett-Packard Enterprise's transformation, where, they've gone through a lot of restructuring, whether that's spin mergers and services or spin mergers and software. What we're starting to see now is this new enterprise infrastructure-focused company emerge and make business choices that are really around how do they capitalize on better margin pools within that really core infrastructure space that can be quite competitive.
It's interesting. Clearly, when HP split, not a lot of people saw the election of Donald Trump coming. And in a discussion about M&A yesterday with David Kirkpatrick, he suggested that bigger could simply be safer in today's sort of unpredictable environment, not knowing what's really to come in a Trump administration. Do you think two HPs are better off than one HP with Donald Trump running our country?
Well, I really can't comment on that. What I can focus on is what you're seeing emerge in these companies. I spent a lot of time with both Hewlett-Packard and Hewlett-Packard Enterprises. And what I would say, if I could sum it all up in one word, it's focus. And this company, through their focus, really has a lot more options because the sales team is more focused on what they're selling. The products, the absolute amount of time they can spend on crafting the portfolio, that kind of stuff is just stronger than it's been in the past. And you really saw that in the Hewlett-Packard, in the HP Inc., the PC and printer companies, PC results today. I mean, looking at that, you basically saw the Personal Systems Group, growing 4%, and that's significantly faster than the market. That's on better execution and better products. So as far as what person is in charge, Meg actually on the call did mention she didn't see the election had a significant impact on near-term results. Longer term, tough to tell at this point.
Quickly, Crawford, what sort of progress do you expect to see with regard to HPE in the cloud, given the giants that are now Amazon, Microsoft, and even Google?
Yeah, so what HPE is going to focus on is helping companies that still support, hybrid cloud infrastructures have the absolute best infrastructure, and they're going to go after the highest margin pools there. And then don't forget that HPE also has significant relationships with folks like Microsoft Azure, and they want to, with their Cloudline servers, be able to have have profitable deals in that business, which is incredibly competitive. And that's where you really want to benchmark them. Can they be profitable over time supporting the public cloud? And that's really a big part of their strategy.
Okay, Crawford Del Prete, IDC Chief Research Officer, thanks so much, as always, for stopping by. Coming up, all four major U.S. stock benchmarks rallied to records, the Dow topping 19,000. What it means for the IPO market as we wrap up the year and look ahead to 2017. And if you like Bloomberg News, check us out on the radio. You can listen on the Bloomberg Radio app, Bloomberg.com, and in the U.S. on Sirius XM. This is Bloomberg.
I'm Mark Crumpton. You're watching Bloomberg Technology. Let's begin with a check of first word news. President-elect Donald Trump says he'll, quote, keep an open mind about whether to pull the United States out of the Paris Agreement, the recently approved global accord on climate change. During meeting today with the publisher, editors, and reporters of the New York Times, Mr. Trump said of the deal, again quoting, I'm looking at it very closely. During the campaign, Mr. Trump, who's called climate change a hoax, threatened to pull the U.S. out of the agreement. In Turkey, the opposition Nationalist Party is preparing to endorse President Recep Erdogan's bid for more power. The MHP is signaling that it's close to an agreement with the ruling AKP party on a new constitution. Mr. Erdogan wants to formally change the political system from a ceremonial presidency to an executive one. North Korea is rejecting condemnation by the United Nations on its human rights record. Pyongyang says the U.S. is the worst abuser of human rights and that European countries are committing crimes against humanity. President Obama today awarded the nation's highest civilian honor to 21 groundbreaking actors, musicians, athletes, and innovators. He said the group, including Tom Hanks, Bill and Melinda Gates, and Michael Jordan, inspired him over the years and, quote, helped make me who I am. The Presidential Medal of Freedom recognizes contributions to the national interests of the U.S., its security, and its culture. I'm Mark Crumpton. This is Bloomberg. It's just after 6:30 p.m. here in New York, 10:30 Wednesday morning in Sydney. My colleague Paul Allen has a look at the markets. Paul, good morning.
Good morning, Mark. We're off to another strong start here on the ASX. The index up almost 0.5% now after the first 30 minutes of trade. Fortescue Metals, one of the good movers at the moment. The iron ore play up about 2.5%. And in fact, it's likely to be a good day for all those resources stocks with BHP Billiton and Rio Tinto rising strongly in London trade. Take a look at Crown Resorts as well. They were doing quite well this morning. This is after Australian consular officials had an opportunity to visit the 3 Australians currently under detention in China for what's believed to be alleged gambling crimes. A lawyer says it could be 2 months before charges are laid in that particular case. Take a look at some of the other indexes around the region. The NZX also performing well in early trade, and Nikkei futures looking positive. And there's a few stocks to keep an eye out for in Asia today in terms of earnings. Chow Tai Fook, the world's largest publicly traded jewellery chain, reported first half profit fell by 22% on Tuesday, but that is an improvement on the year previous. I'm Paul Allen in Sydney. More from Bloomberg Technology next.
This is Bloomberg Technology. I'm Emily Chang. All 4 major U.S. stock benchmarks rallied to records in Tuesday's trading, with the Dow Jones Industrial Average topping 19,000 for the first time. However, tech stocks haven't been part of the rally, last peaking October 24th, 2 weeks before the election, when they saw highs not seen since 2000. So, as investors grow more confident the U.S. economy can withstand a Federal Reserve rate hike and adjust to the surprise election of Donald Trump, what does it mean for tech M&A and IPOs in the new year? Here with me now, Carter Mack, president of JMP Group. Carter, great to have you back here on the show.
Thank you, Emily.
So the markets have been on a roll, but tech has not been part of the rally. Why is that?
It's hard to say. I mean, you're right. The markets have been up, and small caps in particular. I think the Russell 2000 hit a record, up 11% since the election. You know, I think a lot of the bigger tech companies are multinational in scale, and I think that, you know, Trump's policies, generally anti-trade, you know, those kinds of things are really affecting people's viewpoints of the bigger companies, the Amazons, the Microsofts, the IBMs. And that's, you know, since those are the largest market cap companies, affecting the whole industry.
So Facebook, Google, Netflix, for example, all down since the election.
Right.
Do you think that will keep up, or that once we start to see more certainty around Trump's policies, that could change?
I think it can change. I think that the tech sector will probably join this rally at some point. I think, you know, we're going to talk a little bit about IPOs. I think the backdrop for IPOs is very good. I think people are looking for high growth companies in the market today, and I think, you know, we see a lot of growth in technology, especially in cloud-based software platforms and other companies that don't necessarily have as big an impact from, you know, some of these global economic issues.
So 2015, 2016, pretty dry years for tech IPOs. And now we have 2 political surprises with the election of Donald Trump and Brexit. So companies that were perhaps waiting for some more certainty may not have gotten it. What does that mean for 2017 when it comes to IPOs?
Well, you know, I was saying before the election that the backdrop for IPOs has been really good, actually, over the last 6 months. And that's, you know, we've had low volatility in the market. We've had 5 months of inflows into equity funds. We've had generally good performance. And in the IPO sector, for the IPOs that have come out in 2016, the average IPO is up about 35%. In technology, the average IPO is up about 45%. So people are making money and outsized returns by betting on new companies in the IPO market. In October and you know, the couple weeks before the election, we really saw an uptick in IPO activity. But as the election got closer, people got more uncertain, and that's tailed off, obviously. I do think that we are set up for a much more robust IPO market in 2017.
So how many more IPOs?
Well, it's hard to say, but the backlog of confidentially filed deals has gone up significantly. And
Snapchat, for example, filed before the election.
That's right. And, there was a deal yesterday, Optiv, in the cybersecurity space that filed. There's a lot of companies that are filed confidentially. I just know from JMP Securities as an active underwriter in the technology and biotech IPO markets, we saw a number of companies select underwriters and get on file confidentially in the fall. And so we know that there's a lot of companies lining up to go public in the first quarter of 2017.
So what about M&A? Will companies get more acquisitive? Who, why?
The M&A backdrop has been good. I mean, we focus in the middle market, and middle market M&A has been very good. Our own M&A advisory business is up dramatically this year. We focus in tech and healthcare and financial services and real estate, and we've seen a steady increase in M&A activity. We don't really see that slowing down. A lot of the companies we deal with will benefit, at least from what we're hearing the policies will be. Lower regulation, lower tax rates. Companies that are more domestically focused, so don't have some of the issues around, stronger dollar and trade policy. We think it's so far generally positive.
David Kirkpatrick, one of our Bloomberg contributing editors, suggested yesterday that bigger is safer, or potentially safer, under President-elect Trump. Would you agree with that?
I don't know if I'd agree with that. I mean, the market doesn't necessarily agree with that right now. I mean, as I said, the Russell 2000 is up 11%. That's the area, the small cap part of the market has been the part of the market that's been rallying. And I think, there's more uncertainty for large global companies that have businesses, in Asia and across the world with, the potential for, trade wars and other negative consequences.
Any specific sectors within tech that you would single out where you expect to see activity?
Well, as I said, we're seeing a lot of activity in cloud-based software. That's an area that we cover, and we've seen, recent deals. We were on the Coupa IPO, which performed quite well. It's up 65% since the IPO. We expect to see a lot more activity in that area. That's continued to be high growth.
All right.
Good area for investors.
Carter Mack, JMP Group President. Always great to have you here on the show. Thanks for stopping by. A story we are watching, a major ad tech provider, AppNexus, has barred Breitbart News from using its tools because it says the online publisher violated its hate speech rules. AppNexus said that in light of former Breitbart chief's appointment, Steve Bannon, to the White House last week, the company did a human audit of the site. It found there were enough articles and headlines that crossed a line, and it cited violence. Last week, Facebook and Google, the two largest sellers of digital ads, said they'd pull ad support from sites that spread misinformation. Still to come, the solar industry grapples with what a Trump administration means for renewable energy demand. We speak with the biggest provider of home solar loans in the U.S. next. This is Bloomberg. Apple is making its return to Black Friday. The tech giant teased a one-day sales event to take place November 25th. This after the company decided to forgo the shopping event last year. It's been a busy few months for Apple, which unveiled the iPhone 7 and 7 Plus in September, as well as a revamp of its MacBook Pro last month. Apple hasn't yet revealed which items will be on sale, but the Apple Watch is prominently displayed on the announcement page. Shifting gears to renewable energy, in the weeks following Donald Trump's election, energy analysts have tried to guess what the incoming administration means for the sector. Trump campaigned on promises to bring back coal mining jobs and scrap President Obama's clean energy initiatives. This week, we got another hint.
On energy, I will cancel job-killing restrictions on the production of American energy, including shale energy and clean coal, creating many millions of high-paying jobs. That's what we want. That's what we've been waiting for.
But questions remain, like what will the Trump administration do to tax credits that help homeowners install rooftop solar panels? Joining me now to discuss, Mosaic CEO Billy Parish, whose company is the largest U.S. provider of solar energy loans for consumers. So hearing Trump's remarks there, how do you expect that that will impact your business?
So it's been good to hear from the transition team that they don't plan to target renewable energy tax credits, and that makes sense because solar is one of the most popular things in America right now. 89% of Americans support solar. That's about 85% of Republicans, 95% of Democrats. Solar is creating jobs at 12 times the pace of the rest of the economy. So, it's one of the few bright spots, universally popular. I don't think he's going to go after it.
So this is a guy who believes climate change is a hoax, or at least has suggested as much in the last few years. There's concern about whether tax credits will be rolled back. How concerned are you?
I'm not that concerned. And ultimately, this is about which electricity sources are best for the country and the economy. And right now, solar is cheaper than other forms of electricity. So, most of the action is taking place in the states right now. The market has taken on a life of its own. So, I actually don't think there's much he could do to slow down solar.
Is there any upside under Trump?
Well, there's a lot of interest in investing in infrastructure. Solar and transmission infrastructure are needed. So, we're hoping some of the tax credits he's looking at could be used to further deploy clean energy.
So you guys have just raised another $250 million. As I said, you're the leader in this space, but you've got now Sunrun and Solar City also providing a similar service. How do you see yourselves remaining a leader?
So we work with almost the entire industry. We're a fintech company where we provide software and loan products to almost every major installer in the country. So when they're sitting across the kitchen table with someone who wants to go solar, they're using our application to get that customer instantly approved, to offer them a loan. So we don't compete with Solar City or Sunrun. In fact, we work with those companies.
So how does a Solar City Tesla merger impact you or impact the industry?
We were excited to see those two good companies come together. We work with both companies. We finance Tesla's Powerwall as well as Solar City's solar installation. So for us, it's a positive thing. I think a stronger company together, and we're excited to keep working with them and supporting their business.
So do you buy into his vision of a sort of end-to-end energy service for the consumer?
I do. I think most consumers benefit by going solar. I think anyone who's driven a Tesla knows that that's a better car than most other cars on the road. And if you can bundle these things together into a single offering to a consumer and cross-sell to Tesla customers solar and solar customers Tesla, I think there's something there.
I've asked the same question to Sunrun CEO Lynn Jurich, which is, what is it like being in the same industry as Elon Musk?
I'm glad to be on his side.
All right, Billy Parish, CEO of Mosaic, thank you so much for joining us today. Great to have you. Tomorrow on Bloomberg Television, Anthony Scaramucci, founder of Skybridge Capital and member of the Trump transition team, will give his behind-the-scenes account of the incoming administration and weigh in on the latest appointments. Tune in, 1:30 p.m. Eastern, 10:30 a.m. on the West Coast. And coming up, a major hedge fund is betting big on small startups. Point72 Ventures explains their investment strategy next. This is Bloomberg.
Changed yesterday. This got ever steeper. Are the markets ahead of the Fed or are they behind?
It's not risk on, risk off on the markets, but where investors are a little bit more sophisticated.
In trending news, be a leader, not a tweeter. That's what most U.S. voters want from President-elect Donald Trump now that the election is over. A Quinnipiac University poll found that 59% of voters surveyed think Trump should close his personal account at Real Donald Trump. Trump had used Twitter extensively on the campaign trail and has continued to do so since the election, opting for 140-character updates instead of traditional news conferences. President Obama was the first president to use Twitter, and his administration outlined a transition plan for Trump to take over his @POTUS handle on Inauguration Day. However, Trump's personal account has 3.6 million more followers than the official POTUS account. Well, hedge fund manager Steve Cohen is turning to tech to give his Point72 fund an edge. Cohen recently disclosed big stakes in fintech companies, including Cloud9, Acorns, and Quantopian. Matthew Grenade, Chief Market Intelligence Officer at Point72 Asset Ventures, joined Bloomberg Daybreak Americas and explained the firm's interest in tech and small startups.
If you really want to know what's going on in the cutting edge of technology and where innovation is really happening, it's really important to know about startups. And so that's really what we're trying to do at Point72 Ventures is get to know those companies in the space that are relevant to Point72 Asset Management, which is really a diversified asset management firm. And so, so we're really excited to then work with those companies to both sort of be a client to them and an investor to them.
Exact client and investor. So do you sort of drop the money and say bye-bye, see you later, or do you also end up using their services and help sort of like a joint venture partnership at the end of the day?
Yeah, one of the really important criterions in our investment is can we help them? Because if we feel like we can't help them, there's a lot of places to get money. And so every investment, all the ones you named, we're helping them day to day with sort of their most important strategic priorities. You know, whether it be introductions to large banks or introductions to customers or how to trade or, you know, as a customer of their technology product. It's really critical to our investment thesis because on the one hand, it's how you really know that you're making a smart investment, that you can be an informed customer. And number two, it's how you're really a great VC to these companies because you're able to help them.
So what's the relationship with the ideas and Steve Cohen? Are you independent or you go to him and say, hey, Steve, I got something cool, you got to look at it?
Steve's, well, first of all, Steve's really engaged in the startup landscape, and he just loves the energy around startups. So, you know, he's very involved, and he's on the investment committee and so every decision basically ends up with me and Pete, our other partner, and Steve having to talk about it, and you know, kind of getting his view and having his opinion kind of in that process. And so it's great to do that with him because you know, he's a liquid markets investor for 30 years now, and one of the really interesting things is the lens he then brings on things because he wants to talk about multiples, he wants to talk about growth rates, he wants to talk about how much are we paying for this, and those traditionally aren't things you hear in a VC process, and so it's kind of bringing a new lens and a discipline to our process. It's very exciting for me.
Well, that's actually a great point because I wanted to talk about valuations. How do you value these companies, and are they overvalued? Like, how do you deal with that?
Yeah, well, I mean, look, you mainly value them on revenue if they have revenue, and there are sort of multiples in the market. And if you've sort of been doing VC for a while, you sort of understand what those multiples are. Certainly over the last year, they have come down in most spaces. Probably the exception being machine learning and artificial intelligence, where the prices are still, in my opinion at least, very, very high. And then with very, very early stage deals, where there's not revenue, there's kind of just accepted norms about kind of what you pay, kind of given a team and things like that. But startup investing is a bit of an act of faith. Like you're betting on something big happening down the road.
Is a Steve Cohen an active faith guy though? How hard do you have to work?
We have to work very hard. I mean, he often ends up meeting with the entrepreneurs themselves because if we're really betting on the team, he wants to understand kind of what they've got. And then I think it's as I said, very energizing for him. And then it also helps with his public market investing because the fact is that these companies are the ones that are disrupting the big public companies. If you trade automotive stocks these days, you've got to understand what's happening with artificial intelligence and self-driving cars and these sorts of things. And so for us as a firm, it really sort of has a lot of different advantages.
And your exit strategy? Is it IPO? Cash out?
Well, there's a lot less IPOs these days. I mean, normally, these companies will get bought by someone along the way. I mean, it's obviously very, very exciting if a company goes all the way to an IPO, but I would say nowadays you sort of have to count on that less and less.
That was Matthew Grenade, Point72 Ventures Chief Market Intelligence Officer on Bloomberg Daybreak Americas. Well, AT&T's online version of DirecTV is launching next week without CBS. According to people familiar with the matter, it is the lone holdout for the service among top media companies. Aimed at would-be cable customers, DirecTV Now is a package of more than 100 live channels delivered over the internet for $35 a month. Tomorrow on the show, our guest host, Technologist Research President Bob O'Donnell, will check in with Intel Security and break down the most hackable holiday gifts this season, what you need to do to secure your connected devices. Find out tomorrow. And that does it for this edition of Bloomberg Technology. Remember, all episodes are now live streaming on Twitter. Check us out at Bloomberg Tech TV, weekdays 6 p.m. in New York, 3 p.m. in San Francisco. That's all for now from San Francisco. This is Bloomberg.
Hi, my name's Ashley.
Hello, Ashley. I am a socially intelligent robot.
Ashley Vance is going to the farthest corners of Earth.
This is the UFO. What am I going to find inside? You get Wi-Fi out here?
To find the mad scientists, the tech geniuses, and the dreamers of tomorrow.
It's about high-tech innovation and doing really, really clever things.
Hello, world. Friday on Bloomberg.